Thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree here today with another episode of the Simply Inspired podcast. Today, joined by a very, very special guest, Karl Baxter, professional ultra runner. I think if you open the dictionary and look up the word extreme, there's probably a photo of this man underneath that word because some of his achievements in the world of ultra running are absolutely incredible. We've got things like the Tunnel Ultra, which we'll be getting into later on, 200 miles back and forth through a tunnel, sensory deprivation, pretty extreme. We've got the Frozen Accumulator, we've got Isolation Ultra, as I say, extreme. But as always, with my interviews, more importantly than just talking about sports, we will also be delving deeper into the mindset that it takes to push ourselves beyond our perceived limits in life and find out what's on the other side. So hopefully there'll be some inspiration there. Karl, sorry about talking about you in third person for a minute, mate, but give that a little bit of background for people. Thank you very much for coming on the show, mate. It's great to have you here today. It really is.
All right, no worries, no worries. My pleasure.
Absolutely. So, I don't always start at the beginning with all of my guests, but I think what we'll do is we'll go back in time just for a minute and just find out a little bit about your sporting background and if sports is something you were always interested in, maybe from a very young age or from very early on in your life, or if it's something that came into your life a little bit later on. Let's start there, if that's all right, please.
Yeah, no, I'm sport daft, and even from a young age, 5, 6, I was always playing football for the local team, like the local junior team where I lived in Fleetwood in Lancashire. Always, and from there, obviously at school doing athletics, and yeah, but a lot of it was getting chased by the police when I was younger. I was a bit of a lad, should I say, but I used to do a lot of running away from the police. But as a young child, football and or any sport really, any sport, even if it's track, field, or even a racket sport, always into sports. Even now, all the way to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the start of it. Then
Yeah,
football, basketball, and a bit of running from the police, some early practice. Uh,
yeah,
fair enough. And other than running away from them, was running in any sort of track events or anything else like that ever something that you did growing up, or did that come in later as well?
well, I did it at school in the first 3 years of high school, and it was mainly like 800 meters or 1500 meters. And no one said I'd be very good. I got some secondhand spikes, and there's a lad said, "Oh, you won't win, Carl." In fact, it was one of the teachers said, "Well, you won't beat Gary Townley, Carl. You won't even beat Billy Pratt." Well, I did. I came second in that race, and because it was just the drive, it was the kick up the backside that I needed because they said I couldn't do it, so I went out and did it. I never won, but I beat everyone that they said I wouldn't beat.
Yeah. Well, proving people wrong is a powerful motivation, isn't it? If you're using it as
Yeah,
fuel, you can turn a negative into a positive. And you also have a background in the army and things as well. Am I correct in saying?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
yeah.
did a I got expelled. I got expelled from school, and I went to a school in the Lake District for kids for maladjusted children, naughty kids really. And I took up orienteering there, and I fell in love with that side, running up the mountains and everything in the Lake District. And then when I came out of there, I joined the army, yeah, and I was in the army for just over 13 years. But when I did my basic training, I went to Germany, and I got in with the wrong crowd. I got in with the drinking culture in Germany and the lads in the army, and so I wasn't really sporty when I was in Germany. I only just passed my basic army fitness tests because there was other priorities for me, like having a good time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, it's amazing how you flip that on its head to achieve what you're achieving now. So when it comes into the ultra side of things specifically, I mean, before we get into any of the races and any of that stuff, talking about the inspiration in terms of what gave you that spark to want to push yourself that far. Where did you first come across the idea, or even if it wasn't starting with ultras, even if you started with like 10Ks or marathons or something like that. Just that initial spark and where that came from would be cool to hear about as well, please.
Yeah, I in 1996 I came back from I spent 4 months down in the Falklands. Again, another drinking culture down there, and then I got posted to London, where I was in the Royal Corps of Transport. I ended up driving members of like senior military officers, dignitaries, and I was in Camden Town, and there's a running shop in Camden Town called Runner's Need, and there was a poster for a marathon, the London Marathon, and I thought I'm going to do that. And then when I went home to Fleetwood, I said again in the pub, I'm going to do the London Marathon. Oh, you're not going to do that. And I thought, well, I will, and I'll prove it to you. So I did my first marathon in 1996. Oh, it was 4 hours 15. But I was smoking and drinking there, and I was quite a lot bigger than I was. And that's when I took up the running side, long distance, in 96. Yeah.
Wow, that is a
Yeah.
cool story. Just yeah, just sort of post and it's like, okay, where do I
Yeah.
sign that? That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
So obviously I think something that people will find inspiring with this as well is that you're getting yourself into shape and sort of sorting your life out because you obviously must have made some changes with smoking and drinking and who you spent time with and just other habits like that. And I think that that'll be very valuable for people to hear about if you get what I mean. And not to sound cliche, but the fact you can do it shows other people they can do it as well. So what were some of the things you did to sort of get rid of some of those habits and change your lifestyle, basically?
Yeah, well, I was, I've got an addictive personality. When it came to drinking, I had to be the drunkest drunk. I had to be the best drunk, not the horriblest drunk. Just I had to drink more than you or the next person next to me, and if I was smoking, I'd have to smoke more than him. So it was. I stopped smoking. I was on the train down to London the day after Boxing Day one year, and I went. It was the time when you could pull down the window and have a cigarette. And I took a drag of the cigarette, and it knocked me sick. And I threw him out the window. I said, right, I'm not going to have another cigarette ever again. And I haven't. And 17 years ago, it was on a Saturday morning. I opened the fridge. I wasn't working, and I went to get a can of beer 11:30 in the morning. And I said to myself, "What are you doing?" And I said to myself, "Right, I'm not going to drink anymore." And I haven't. I haven't touched a drop.
Wow.
Yeah.
That,
So I think you've got to have a strong mindset. If you want to do it, you'll do it. But you have to have that from within. Everyone said you can't do it. 1,000 people say you can do it or you can't do it, but it has to come from within. Yeah, you have to want that for yourself.
yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. It is an inner journey in a way. So, so you got those things out of your life. That makes sense. Now, with the addictive personality thing, does that apply to running itself? Is that one of the reasons you've got to sort of push yourself further and further? Because you said a couple of things. You said about proving people wrong and or you've got to be the best at everything, and you said about the addiction. Do those sort of things apply to the reason why then you went from regular marathons and everything, which are a feat in themselves. Don't
Yeah,
get me wrong,
absolutely.
all the way to these crazy so many miles. I just like to talk about that transition a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I have to be. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not the best, far from the best. But in my head, I have to be the best I possibly can. I have to be the best runner I can be in my head, even though I'm not the best runner, far from it. But that goes in every aspect of my life. I have to be the best chef I can possibly be, the best driver, the best person at telling jokes. But that's just the way my brain is wired. So yeah, I always have to, let's say if someone's doing 20 miles, I thought, right, I'll do 22. Um, just to just for my own benefit.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like a strong competitive mindset.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's fiercely competitive. Even though I don't tell anyone I am, I'll say, yeah, I'm not really bothered about that. But deep down I am. You know what I mean? But you're not going to win everything. But as long as you give your best, no one can ask any better.
yeah, absolutely. So that was the marathon side of things. Did you do more marathons after the London one as well, like the regular distance, or did you
No,
jump into ultras and everything from
no,
there?
I did my last London Marathon in 1999 in 3 hours 9 minutes. I was still smoking and drinking then. No, I wasn't smoking. I was drinking. And then I came out of the army, and then I stopped. I stopped running, like doing races. Um, God, for about 14 years because I had to work all the time. I had a little business that went down the Swanee, and then it was only really when I got a proper job being employed by someone I took up running again. And I saw where I lived in near Spalding in Lincolnshire. I saw again another sign on a retail park saying the Grim Reaper. So I looked into this race called the Grim Reaper, and it was 40, 70, or 100 miles. So I signed up to do the 40 miles. So there was a gap of about, of nearly 14, 15 years between my last marathon and then my first ever ultra.
Wow, that is amazing. That is absolutely. So you've come back, you sort of bounced back from these things not only once, but twice or multiple times. That's amazing. So okay, so that was the first ultra, and then
Uh-huh.
from there, was it, like back in love with running, and you just wanted to do more and more type of thing?
Yeah, yeah, because I finished that and it nearly killed me. I cried at the end of it. I was like a wet weekend. I just couldn't stop crying because it killed me. But 2 days later, I slid down the stairs and I signed up for my next one, and I've done it ever since. Mm. And then I love it. I like the sense of the completion of the training to finishing the race. I haven't finished every race, but the ones that even the ones that you don't finish, there's still you can still take positives out of that.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, well, absolutely. I'll come back to that shortly. In terms of bouncing back from adversity or defeat or whatever you want to call it. But before we get into that, you sent me some breakdowns of some of the ultras you've done and everything, and there's some wild stuff in there. But how many have you done all in all, like in terms of like an ultra distance? Have you lost track of it, or do you sort of know roughly what the ballpark is with that?
Oh, oh God. Well, I've lost count. It must be touching nearly the hundreds.
Wow.
But even like on Wednesday, the Wednesday just gone, I ran 30 miles around the running track, and then straight after that, I walked 10 miles around the running track. So I did 40 miles on as a training run. Yeah, so I've lost count of how many, you know, distances of ultra distances run either in training or races.
Yeah, I thought you might have. I thought you might have.
Oh, yeah,
You've
genuinely, I have.
Wow, that is cool. There's so many that you've lost track of them. Well,
Mm.
obviously, I say this sometimes, but obviously, I'd love to talk about like so many different races, but for time and for people's attention spans, we'll have to focus in on just a few of them because otherwise we'd be here until next week or something like that. You know how it is. So, when I first heard about you personally, to be honest, it was with this Tunnel Ultra thing, which is pretty unique because it's not like anything else. I know you've spoken to the BBC and you've spoken to people about this. But I think we'll give a mention to a couple of the sort of out of the box ones because it's a unique type of test as well. With that one, can you explain the format of it and everything just for people who may not know? And then I want to go into a few mindset topics. But let's see on the format first because it's not like anything else, is it? The Tunnel Ultra.
No, well, basically, what it is, it's an old Victorian railway tunnel near Bath, in England, and it's underground. It's just over the mile long, um, and it's there and back 100 times, so it's 200 miles. It actually works out at 208 miles, and it's underground. It's very very lowly lit, and then at 11 o'clock at night, it's completely pitch black, and you just run with the head torch. And then between the hours of 9 in the morning and 6 at night, there's violin music playing. The same piece of violin music keeps going for the in the middle section of the tunnel for the duration of them 9 hours. Um, and on when you're doing the run, you no headphones, no music, no nothing, no support, just you running up and down the dark tunnel for 2 days.
Wow. It is, well, like I say, I was reading up on this and I was thinking, wow, I mean, this is like, well, at face value, it's like someone's bad dream that they've made into real life, isn't it? But at the same time, the experience and the benefits you get from it, as you mentioned, it makes a lot of sense. But with this, I want to touch on the mindset side of things because with something like that, it's not, even though it's very physical and it's very grueling and everything, you've got to have a strong will to do that, especially in the dark and with no support and this type of thing. So with that race and with races in general, as well as the physical training which you've touched on, how do you sort of condition your mind to not give up and keep going, basically? I mean, it's got to have a unique way of doing it, you know?
Yeah, with the tunnel, you just got to say one lap at a time.
Mm,
Break it. You can break it down into 100 races, 100 2 mile races. Um, but eh, on races outside that, I always think in my head, people are watching me, people are judging me. So if I'm running, let's say, down a canal path and there's nobody there, then all of a sudden I see somebody. I'm like that. You've got to sharpen up. You know what I mean? You look like you know what you're doing. Don't show any weakness, but really, it's killing you inside. But it's mind over matter.
yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And using those people's focus on you as a type of fuel, like it makes a lot.
Even they don't even care about you. But that's what goes through my mind. You know, they're looking at me thinking, "Oh, he's not doing very well." So I don't want to give them that opportunity,
Yeah,
even though they're probably just walking the dog and they don't give a monkeys about what I'm doing or any runner really.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, the people who know about it are out there doing it.
Yeah.
And the other people so yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But so with the tunnel thing though, you finished it on your second attempt. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. The first time I did it, I I did 119 miles, but I went into that. I was fit, but I went in wearing a new pair of trainers, like a schoolboy era. I had only run about one run of about 7 or 8 miles, and I thought they'll do, and it crippled my Achilles. So it was the worst mistake I ever made. So I could the last lap, which was the 118, 119, it took me 54 minutes to do 2 miles. I could hardly walk, so I called it a day. So I decided next time I'll wear some decent trainers, worn in trainers, and when I went back to complete it.
Yeah. And with the time that you did finish it as well, there was one where you twisted your ankle or something,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that was the time I finished. It was about 130 miles, and I in the tunnel, obviously it's a footpath, like tarmac, but there's a little ledge just off the edge of it, and then where the tunnel comes up. Well, I was running in front of a man called Adrian Martin who finished it as well. I just lost my ankle, and I fell into the wall, and my left ankle came up like an egg on the outside, and it was really painful. So I did a couple of laps, and I thought, sod it, that's it, I've had enough. So I sat down and Karen, the timekeeper, I said to her, I'm stopping. So she went to get Mark Cockbain, the organizer of the event, and he came running to me. He said, look, excuse my French. He said, a bloody swollen ankle has never killed anybody, right? He says, go out there, do 2 or 3 more laps, and if it's still painful, call it a day. So I thought, okay, like I got told off like a naughty schoolboy. So I undid my shoelaces and carried on, and my body adjusted because he said your body would adjust, and it'll obviously it's a little shock of the system to your ankle, but your body will compensate. Yeah, and I did that, and then I carried on and I completed it. The laps just ticked off. And then when I got to about 170 miles, I knew I was going to complete it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long to finish that race are you running for, like altogether?
Oh, no, it was more like a hobble and a shuffle. And you're saying to yourself, what are you doing? Uh, and then with the hallucinations. But the last 2 or 3 laps, you got a little jig on, because you're starting to feel really good inside, like unbreakable. If that's like nothing could break you. It was like you're in a sense of flotation. So you're just not skipping along, but you're just moving along nicely. And then the last lap, the last time I was going, I actually I ran for the last half a mile, and then I walked the last half a mile to enjoy the scenery, which was dark. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and the hallucinations thing as well. I read on this that a lot of people with that race, I mean, a lot of people with really long ultras in general do have this, but with that race, I've heard that a lot of people see some weird stuff, just
Oh, it's mental, man. It's mental. For me, I was running along a few, but the ones that stuck out, there was a family of abominable snowmen clinging to the wall, and you're looking, you're like, are they really there? And then on another occasion, a slug sliding towards me with a fag in its mouth, and you're like that, and then all of a sudden it disappears. Mm. And another instance, I was I was getting back to the start, and they were saying, "Why are you running out so slowly, but running really quick coming back?" And I said, "Because I'm running uphill, going out, but coming back, I'm quicker because I'm running downhill. But it's literally flat, the tunnel."
that is radical. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's
You
outside.
don't need to be on LSD. Just go running in the tunnel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'd imagine with this, you discover a lot about yourself, like what you were saying about feeling good and what you're capable of doing,
Yeah.
being way beyond what you thought. So, I mean, that side of it must be incredible. Um, wow.
Yeah,
When
you're invincible. Once you've done that, you think you can do anything, or if you can do that race, you can do any race. That's why it teaches you. You can do something if you want to do it. If you put your mind to it, 100%, you will do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time. And I'll touch back on that some more in a moment. But when you did finish the race, I know you said that in those last couple of miles or whatever it is, you knew you were going to do it. But when you do actually finish it and everything, what goes through your mind in that moment when like, oh, I've done it type of thing, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, it was just like, yeah, I've done it, and to me, that's it. Move on to the next challenge. Because my girlfriend Kerry, she says, "Are you going to stop now?" I said, "No." And she says, "Is it not enough?" And I said, "No, it's not nothing. It'll never be enough because it's like I said earlier, it's a form of addiction, and a lot of people will resonate with that. I do believe.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, swapping an unhealthy addiction for a healthy addiction. I mean,
Yeah,
they're both habits, but one's a good habit, one's a bad habit. I mean,
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. And this is the thing, I can get my head around that with yourself, as well as proving people wrong and the competitive thing. It sounds like there's sort of a tolerance type of thing where you do that race, then you've got to do something more and you've got to do
yeah,
something more. And yeah, I mean, I get my head around it. If your brain works that way, then it can be a real advantage, as long as you use it the right way. I think that's a great lesson for people out there, anyone who's struggling as well, to be honest.
yeah.
Um, so you've done some other radical ones as well. And as I said, you won't have time to talk about them all. But when I was looking at this, there's a lot of very long mileage things here. But I've got to ask you, the frozen accumulator, the name jumps out at me. It's something you don't hear every day. Um, and yeah, let's talk about that one because I mean, there's a lot of great things you've done. Like I was saying at the beginning, national three peaks. I've got a list of them here. That you sent me. Obviously the tunnel, many Mark Cockburn events, isolation ultra, track 100 miles, 24 hours, last man standing. We're going to talk about that. 32 miles to 70 miles. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff, but this frozen accumulator one sounds something like it could be something out of the box, like the tunnel. So can you tell us the story of that one as well, please, mate?
Yeah, well, it's another Mark Cockburn event, his creation. The Frozen Accumulator starts um, on the 1st of January. So on the 1st of January, you run 1 mile. On the 2nd of January, you run two, third, three, fourth, and then all the way up to 31 on the 31st of January. Yeah. So the last week, and my math, I think the last week you run 226 miles or something in the last week. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
a,
obviously it was done in January. Obviously, where I live, in Wisbech on the Fens, it's completely flat and it gets really quite cold. Not as cold as some places in the world, but it gets quite cold for England.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're running in that well. Fair play. This guy, Mark, obviously I read up on him. I mean, he's achieved some incredible
Oh,
things in ultras.
different level altogether.
Yeah,
Oh,
incredible achievements in terms of running ultras and the amount of things he's done. But in terms of the events he sets up as well, you obviously resonate with the type of challenge that he creates, would you say? Because you've done a
yeah, because he sets these challenges where they are hard. They are hard. Not everyone will finish them, and I haven't finished all these races. There's only a couple of people that have, and they're in a different league altogether. But he makes them so it pushes you on beyond your limits and before more than you realize you can be pushed. And it's only you that's going to do it. People can say, "Yeah, keep going," but it's in your mind. You got to keep believing in yourself.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty extreme.
absolutely. Yeah, well, big respect to him. I mean, obviously everything he's achieved as a runner, but as a race director and an event organizer and everything like that, he's created some really unique stuff that's changing the face of
Yeah, and when you complete his events, he's so happy. He wants you to complete them, and he's genuinely over the moon. Because he was hugging me like I was his son when I did finish the tunnel and the three peaks. He generally is happy for you to finish his events because he knows how hard they are.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that respect from him
Yeah,
must mean a lot. So another thing here, I want to talk about the uh, last man standing format. Now, again, a lot of people know about this type of thing with 24-hour races and this type of thing, but for people who don't know, because obviously there will be some people watching this who are new to ultras, and there'll be some people who are very seasoned and know loads about ultras. For those people who are not as familiar, can you explain the sort of some of these type of things you've done with the 24-hour or the last man standing type of format as well, please?
yeah. I first found out about the last man standing. Oh, probably about 5 years ago, just before COVID. And then, but what it is, it happened. The one in England, the first one in England, was held by a company called Atlas Running, and it was run round like a woodland, like on a track. 4.16 miles is the loop, and you got to do that every hour on the hour till there's only one person left. Again, which is it's a mind over matter when it gets down to the final 5, 6 people. It's who wants it the most.
Yeah.
And obviously now they've sprung up all over the world, and it's taken off big time.
Yeah, but yeah, it's getting very popular now. I think
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
quite a few people been mentioning it more and more type of thing. But yeah, so looking at all these feats of endurance, looking at like the tunnel and 24-hour and all this type of stuff, two sides to this. Out of all of your races, which one is the longest in terms of mileage, and which one is the longest in terms of um not sleeping or sleeping very little or that type of
well, the longest non-stop is the tunnel, 208 miles, and the longest one I've done is the National Three Peaks, which I did last year, and that was for people who are not aware. There's a challenge in the United Kingdom called the Three Peaks Challenge, where you do it within 24 hours, where you go up and down the highest mountain in Scotland, which is in Great Britain, Ben Nevis. Then you drive to the Lake District for Scafell Pike, and then you drive to Wales and up and down Snowdon, the highest mountain in Snowdon in Wales. But this one, we ran between all of the mountains. So it ended up 440 miles we ran, and there were 42 people started the race, and 17 of us finished it.
wow.
Yeah, best thing I've ever done by a country mile.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was really good.
Do
Um,
you prefer? Oh, sorry, Matt. Sorry to cut across there, Carl. I wanted
no, I was just going to say I ran with a guy called Alan Cormack. We started and finished the same, and we did it in. I mean, we're not the quickest, but we did it in 9 days, 1 hour. We all 17 of us got within inside the existing record for doing it on foot, which is an achievement in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing achievement.
Mhm.
And shout out to Alan as well, because you won't believe this, Carl, but I'm actually, if everything goes according to plan, I'm speaking to him now tonight
Are
after.
you really? Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
the guy is a living legend. Everybody knows him. You
Yeah,
know, he's just an unreal individual. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
came across you both of you around the same time, and there was some crossovers with different races you've done. So yes, I contacted both of you at the same time, and then
Uh-huh.
I thought you book in on different days, but you both booked in on the same day to
Uh-huh.
these talks. So I was like, oh my days, that is
I'll give him my best.
I will. I will. So, okay, so that's that side of it. Now, you've also said though recently that this year there's been a few struggles with some of the races as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, all the three. Well, I what have I done? I've done the Flitzway, which was running for 12 hours. That's just a little like a training run, but that was 100K. I had to do 100 kilometers in under 10 hours, and I missed it by no, sorry, 120 by in 12 hours. But I got to 11 hours, and I would have been 11 kilometers short. So I tapped out at 66 miles. Um, and then obviously I went back to do the tunnel because no one's done the tunnel twice. So me and a guy called Adrian Martin went back this year to do it twice, but I stopped at 110 because I tweaked the back of my right calf, the joint of the back of my knee, and because I've got a major race in a couple of weeks, everyone kept saying to me stop, so I took their advice and stopped. Um, I did the Bridge Ultra, which is 200 miles, but again, I stopped at 132 miles. Now, I wasn't injured, I was just running slow, and the demons in my brain kept saying, you're not going to finish it. With the time that you got left, you're not going to finish it. So your head demons was messing with it. So I stopped. But Mark Cockburn said you would have probably finished it at a real tight squeeze. But once the demons went on that day, I called it a day.
Yeah.
And then I did the line, which was in June, which from Hull down to Brighton, 300 miles. I um I stopped at 118 because I put my left foot down a rabbit hole, but I was overcompensating on my right, because and that came worse, so I stopped at 118. And because I'm doing a race in a couple of weeks, which is called Spartathlon. So everyone said that's your A race for the year. So all these races, even though I paid for them last year, I hadn't qualified for Spartathlon. But as soon as I found out I was in Spartathlon, you make a decision which is more important. So the Spartathlon has become everything. So all them runs over 100 miles, 130 miles are just like long training runs now. So it hasn't been a complete disaster in one sense, but it has because I haven't finished any of them three races this year.
Yeah, but this is the thing where there's always two sides to it, aren't there? I mean, there's
Yeah,
lessons learned from things that don't go to plan just as much as there's lessons learned from things that do go to plan, and yeah, I mean. Let's talk about the Spartathlon because that is a special race, especially because of its history, and some of the people who run it and everything. And all this. How are your preparations going for that? Because obviously you're going to be running in the heat and in a different type of environment.
yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, last year I got interviewed by a magazine by a chap called Abitchel Sherrington over in Bristol, and he said to me, "Why have you not applied to do the Spartathlon, Carl?" I said, "I'm not quick enough." He says, "Oh, you are." And then my friend who lives locally down here called Ash Gilbert, he did it last year and completed it, and I was fascinated by the dot watching. So when I got the opportunity to run Mark Cockburn's track 24, I thought, right, I'm going to see if I can get the qualifying time, which I did. I did 100 miles in 18 hours, 18 minutes. Um, yeah, and so my training, besides them three races at the start of the year, it's been going really well until uh, about 6 weeks ago when I got found out I had cataracts in my eyes.
Yeah.
So on Thursday last week, I've had my right eye done, and then on Wednesday, I'm getting my left eye cataracts removed. But all my training's done now, so um, I've just got a taper now until 2 weeks on Saturday. and
Yeah.
then we've got to give everything. Luckily, for the last few days, it's been quite hot here in Wisby, so I've been running in the heat, in the 30-degree heat, so getting hopefully some acclimatization.
Yeah. Well, that's
Mm.
a good bit of practice. It's been the
Yeah.
same. I'm in South Wales, but it's the same down here. It's been absolutely baking.
Uh-huh.
Well, it'll be some good practice for you. And then the Spartathlon, after that, I mean, I know at the moment you'll be focused on that because of the amount of focus and dedication each race takes. But, assuming that goes well, I'm sure it will, what are you looking to do after that? I don't mind how far forward you go in the future, but I'm just curious if there's other races that catch your fancy or if you're solely focused on the Spartathlon for now.
No, I'll obviously complete this, and I'd like to do Badwater 135.
Mm.
But obviously, to qualify for that, I'll have to complete the Spartathlon to get that's a qualifying race, so I can apply for the Badwater. I'd like to do that. Um, yeah, and that's my goal. Would like to give that a bash.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, it's an amazing race. I've had a few people on the show who've run Badwater, and yeah, Death Valley, man, that is crazy.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
the Spartathlon team manager Ian Thomas, he did it this year. Watching it was fascinating, and a friend of mine, John Stocker, he completed it last year. It's just, I mean, that's on a different scale altogether.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, so that I'd like to have a go at that or attempt to get in there, and then just give it the best if I was fortunate enough to get in there.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, good luck for that, mate.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will because yeah, like you say, the Spartathlon, and you're putting the training in and everything. But I'm excited to see your forward progress as well. I mean, I know we've spent a bit of time looking back, but everything that's yet to come, that's very exciting as well, because there's some
yeah,
amazing
certainly.
races. Um, on the subject of that with Death Valley and all that side of things, do you with all the races you've done, do you have a preference for running sort of like road running on the tarmac or running in like the woods or the more sort of natural areas like with the peaks and everything? Does it matter to you or do you just like them both in different ways?
No, they've got. I like it all. I like any terrain because you know what you're going to go into. So hopefully train on that type of service. But any running really, um, road running, um, running up in on the three peaks, cross country, tarmac. Even I've done an ultra on a shingle beach, up and down on a shingle beach for 32 miles. Anything.
Yeah. I love that. I love the diversity though, different type
Yeah.
of environments have different type of tests, I imagine. So, it makes sense. And I also wanted to go back to one other thing that you said as well. Where you said about the one race, and you said about the demons and everything and that. And I'd like to go a little bit deeper into that process, not with that race specifically, but in any race now, when you because obviously you love running, right? I mean, that comes over. But when you hit the low points and it's getting very painful in particular, but it's getting very hard in one way or another. Like, I know obviously with the tunnel mark, encourage you to keep going with the ankle things. But basically to get into a little bit deeper into your mindset of how you push through the pain barrier or whatever word you want to use for it. Because I think this one is valuable for people in life, not just for running, I help people with that, but for other areas of life, there's always going to be a pain barrier, and then you've always got to push through. So I'm just curious to go a little bit deeper into that side of things.
Yeah, well, the pain's not going to last forever, is it?
Mm.
There'll always be a happier time in your race or in your life. And we all go through bad phases in our life, but they don't last forever. Um, and when I'm running I find it really hurt. It's the pain will stop as soon as you stop. So it's like if you stop a race, are you going to be more angry because you stopped? Um, and then if you complete the race, there's not going to be any pain. You're going to be more angry that you stopped because you just gave up. You should, you try not to give up because if you get to the end, all that pain you won't forget. You won't remember that pain. And you just take one step at a time because it doesn't matter how slow you go, you will eventually get there.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, like I said, mate, it's a very good lesson for any area of life, because anything that we're pursuing in life, how it goes, there's always going to be high points and low points. And I think,
Absolutely, yeah.
a really good life lesson for people, basically. As we move into the sort of last couple of things or last few things with this, also we focused a lot on yourself individually and the willpower and the strength you have to have. But are there people who've helped you along your journey that you would like to thank? And the reason I ask this is there's a lot of great people helping runners and athletes and helping people in general. And obviously you know them and they know you and you're helping each other. But from the outside world, they're sort of behind the scenes, if you get what I mean. So I think it'd be good to mention anyone who's given you like an important helping hand or something in that way.
Well, I mean, people inspire. I have people that inspire me because I think if they can do it, why can't I? So I always see what they're doing. Like people like John Stocker, Mark Cockbain, what he's done, and Linley Chambers, because he said to me one time, just keep going, Carl. Doesn't matter how slow you go, you will get to the end. And when I did the unlocked ultra 150 miles, I that kept going into my head what he kept saying. Just keep moving. You will get there eventually. Doesn't matter how slow you move, you will get there. So people like that have inspired me just to keep going. You know, but as in helping me, I mean, Kerry, my girlfriend, she helps me a lot now. She's like my crew, and she gives me a kick up the arse at times as well, which sometimes I need, if I'm honest. But yeah, for them three people and other people like Mandy Foister, and there's a young girl, Alex Marshall, a phenomenal runner. I look what she's doing lately, and I don't know how old she's 30. I'm 52. So it doesn't matter how old or young they are, you can always take inspiration from people and use their training or their methods in your running or in your life. And how they run, how they look after themselves. You can always take bits of advice from people, even if you don't speak to them that often.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, getting some people who've inspired you or helped you, because that's a very good way of looking at it, because help, it comes in different forms, I
Mm,
think.
yeah,
And one of the last things, obviously, in terms of your achievements, how do you measure the impact that you've had on things? Because I think that, you inspire other people to run or other people to, even if they push past their limits in a different way, you show people by doing what you're doing that a lot of the limits we think we have up here, we don't really have. We can go past that. So how do you sort of measure your impact on, say, the running world or on people chasing their dreams in general, if you get where I'm going with this one,
if I'm honest, I don't. I
Mm.
don't. I just say, like, I just said to people living at a park run, just keep going, move. Um, I I don't measure what I say to them as a force of like encouragement. I just say get a move on. I don't. I'm just Karl Baxter, fuel tanker driver. I don't know how to answer that if I'm honest.
That's fair enough.
Yeah,
Well, I do think that you are an inspirational person. And the thing with running and everything like that, and with a lot of sports in general, but especially with running, is it really is something that's quite an individual thing, in the sense that people are doing it their own way for their own reasons and everything. So, you can't really compare people. But at the same time, I do think that there'll be people out there who look at what you're doing and think, wow, I can do that as well. And even with what we were speaking about earlier with, stopping drinking and all that type of stuff. As I've said already, pushing past your limits. I think these little things, I think people look at that and they think, yeah, okay, if Carl can do that, I can do that as well. Which is one of the things that's really cool about you, is it goes beyond running, because you represent that by doing what you're doing, if you get what I mean. So,
yeah.
that's my take on it. But there we are. There we are. Well, we've talked about some good things today. And like I said to you before, we haven't been able to talk about every race, but we've talked about some really good highlights. But what I'm happy about as well as the fun stories from your races, we've gone a little bit deeper, haven't we? We've gone into the mindset, we've gone into
Uh-huh.
the willpower and some of that. So we'll wrap this up shortly because I got Alan coming on as we mentioned. But before we do, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to give a mention to, or are you happy with everything we've covered?
No, it's fine. Can I just say one thing? Oh, I mean, people who go running, and a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm really slow." I'm moving, but we are all slow runners to somebody else. So it doesn't matter if you're. I mean, I'm a slow runner to to John Stocker. He's a slow runner to the next person up the chain. So we're all slow runners. It's just about getting out there and enjoying it because you know we're never going to be the fastest in the not if we are we're not going to it's not going to last forever, so we're all slow runners to someone. So if anyone's out there going running and thinking everyone's running past me, so what, you're still running. Doesn't matter if you're running at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 miles an hour, you're still running, and you just go out there and enjoy it because we're all slow to someone.
Yeah. Well, that's good, really good advice. That is absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about running, isn't it? It's an inner journey, and
Yeah,
it's absolutely, yeah. Well, Carl, we've talked about some great stuff today, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Because I know you've probably done a lot of these, and you're like with I sort of read the one with the BBC and all that, and you do a lot of this. But I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and I appreciate you sharing so much about your life as well, not just with running, but some areas of your life outside of it as well, and all that, and just being an open book, as I always say. Much appreciated on that, mate.
Best way to be. Best way to be. No problem.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.